Hello there.
Hello there.
Welcome to Fishing Canada Live.
Lots of reading material for us today. Hey,
I have lots in front. It seems like a month since we've done this. Is it just me? Oh, that's right. I haven't been to work for a week. That may be it.
Hey, there you go. Yeah,
It does.
where the hell you been?
It seems like I have. I've been. What have I been doing? I've been resting. I've been resting.
Pining for the fjords.
Pining for the fjords.
Pining for the fjords.
Anyways, we're good to go. What an exciting program tonight.
You really think so, eh?
This is going to be very cool. I'm excited about this.
I am too, actually.
Before we dive into it, let's get rid of some of the necessary business part of this. I want to remind folks about the contest. FishingCanada.com giving away Mercury Motors, Princecraft boat motor trailer package, you name it. And very soon, we're adding to that list. What, Mr. Bowman?
You want me to flush it out?
I think.
I'm going to give a hint. I'll give a hint, Angelo.
All right.
And especially pertaining to a certain web piece that we put up not too long ago. I'm going to make this real easy for everybody. So the one biggest, I'm going to say comment, not complaint, but it is a complaint, was that, yeah, that's all beautiful, but we can't afford that.
That's tough.
We're going to make that affordable to somebody, okay? That's all I'm going to say right now. So,
very much so. Very much.
Is that good enough?
I think that was good. Nicely done. Regardless, you can find out the minute it happens. Just go to fishingcanada.com contest, and while you're there filling in your ballots for the prizes that are up there now, just read what's coming up next, and make sure you're first in line when it happens, because it's going to be exciting.
You're gonna like it. Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Walt Brown from Westland Coon. Hey, Walt, how you doing? I was just talking. I don't know, Walt was part of there was a group. Somebody put up a picture of somebody got a 6-pound largemouth out there, and then they were talking about a 7 and an 8 that one's in a cooler. Yeah. Remember we fished there years ago. We shot there years ago. See, it used to be like one of the top 10 bass lakes in all of Canada, but I don't know if it's still rating. I think there's fish still there. It's just the pressure's there too. So.
Do you know where I first read about that? Here's how long ago that was a really, really, you're right. I mean, at the time, I think that lake was one of the top 10 lakes for largemouth bass in Canada, right?
Yeah.
And I read about it one time in the Toronto Star.
Wow.
There was an article actually in the Toronto Star talking about the virtues of this bass fishing on West Lacoon. And I remember getting so excited about it. We left the next day.
Yeah.
Checked it out. John Powers. Do you remember John Powers?
Yeah, he wrote that article all the time, right? That column.
Yeah, he was the article. Anyways, what else we need to do before we encourage folks to comment. I see you've already started, but we're trying to come up with better ways to address the comments. I know we have a Q&A question later on in the program, but we're going to try and get to as many of these that we can during that particular segment. So our guys are going to be
a place that you just like Leo and from Nova Scotia. Thanks for saying hi, and Richard from Calgary. So even if you just say Dave from Guelph, we can't get to everybody, but we sure like to see that. And I think the rest of the people that are on here get the kind of a good feeling when you say, "Hey, Leo from Nova Scotia is on," and then Richard from Calgary. It's nice to see the broadness and the range that we're running here. So
for sure. So if that's it for the business part of it, is there anything we need to address right now? I don't think so, right, Mike? As far as questions, I think we're good to go. Perfect. Because I want to bring my next guest on. He's a guy that is in a similar business to ours, very similar business to ours, but he does a few things totally different. And it makes him sort of a pioneer in a lot of areas, especially in the way that he fishes. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Colin McKeown. He is the new fly fisher. He's executive producer of that fine program. He runs a company called Gencore Entertainment that is behind that show. But there's a whole lot to Mr. McKeown that we're going to find out about tonight that you don't know if you just follow him on that particular show. So welcome to the program, Colin.
Hey guys, good to be here.
How's it going?
It's another beautiful Tuesday night.
You look pretty laid back there, brother.
Thanks, I'm at home.
I know you were on the road last week up north in Northern Ontario.
That was great. I was sitting there at home one night, and I get a text from Jamie Pastilli, a buddy of ours. To anybody and they've watched the show, that he's a guide in the Ottawa area, and Jamie and Ange and I have been buddies for a while. We shot with him. I get this picture of him and Colin, Carol Caputo, and Ron, and it was like, I said, "What the hell's going on in there?"
Somebody had a party and forgot to invite us.
Yeah, exactly. Can't blame him, I guess.
So, Colin, thanks for doing this. By the way, I know you've got the same scheduling that we do. So busy. So for you to take the time out to join us is a absolute thrill. So thank you.
Ange, it's a real honor, if I could say, to be with you and Pete, because I've been huge fans of your show since way back in my 20s. Not to say you're old.
No,
it's been a while.
You just did, Colin. You just said we're old. So there you go.
I do miss your mullet there, Pete.
And a lot of people, I got to bring that sucker back. I mean, everybody's talking about it. I got to bring the mullet back. I wonder if there's a modern mullet or something like that. I don't know if there is such a thing.
Modern mullet is reverse, right? Get rid of the center and just, have it.
No, more like this, like I got. It's longer in the top. And no, that's the mullet kind of, yeah.
Exactly.
Maybe a man bun. Oh, I hate the man bun.
No, don't do the man bun. That's not right.
All right, so you started with the 20 years back. So let's go back a few years. Let's go back to Colin's previous life before you started producing television. You were in the Navy, I understand.
Yeah, I was in the RCM for 20 years.
Give us a rundown. What was your duties? 20 years. You must have ranked up there a little bit. What would you do for 20 years?
Well, that would assume that, Pete, I was not only good behavior, but also that I had some competency. But but I joined the Navy, like a lot of people join the military, to try, give it a try for 2 or 3 years, see the world, get some training. I think I was 21 and fell in love with it. I just loved going to sea. I loved travel, and I was having so much fun. And next thing you know, poof, 20 years later, I was done, and I had to make a decision. Stay in the Navy and do the full career, full pension thing, or jump ship and do this thing I thought needed to be done, which was start a fly fishing show that was like your show or the Linder show, that would teach people about destinations and about how to fly fish, because there was nothing on the air.
Right.
And I can't remember where I got this from. It could have been you, Colin, so forgive me if I don't remember exactly, or it could have been Bill, or it could have been Mark. One of the team there I was talking to a while back, and because I asked, the new fly fisher, like, where did that name come from? And the truth of the matter is that it's the truth. You were learning to fly fish when you started this program. You had an interest in fly fishing, and the whole program came to be because there was nothing else out there that could teach people. And so the notion of starting this thing called the new fly fisher, which you were at the time, was perfect. Worked out great.
Yeah.
No. Is that the true story? No kidding. I had no idea. That's awesome.
If I could say the main reason why I started the show, first of all, yes, you're right. Totally right. I started the show because there was nothing on TV like this, and I was very frustrated at the time because, any shows that I did watch where they would occasionally do fly fishing, it was a segment. It was small. It wasn't a whole show. And you can read books. There was limited videos, VHS tapes back then to get your hands on. And there wasn't I was living in Nova Scotia. I was in Halifax. And that's kind of where the genesis came. And then when I was trying to think of the name, when I decided to make the show, and I went to college to take training for it and everything, which taught me all the things I really didn't need to know, and then I learned the rest from watching people like you, Ange. But was that everyone that starts out, whether they're spin angler or they're fly fishing, we're all new. And especially if I could say, I I've been fly fishing since, I don't know, 1993. I go to a new place in Idaho, or I go to a place in Alberta, and I go in this river or that lake. I may know a lot about how to fly fish on a lake, but I go there and I learn all this new stuff that I didn't know. All the nuances that make the difference between having a good day and a great day. And I watch you both all the time doing this. And I remember very distinctly, and I can't remember if it was you, Ange, or your brother doing, and I remember because it's stuck in my head and it still resonates with me because it was actually a bit about fly fishing. He was having a tough day catching bass, and he was throwing rapellas on the surface and popping them because it was, still early June. And so what he did was he took a piece of monofilament, 18 inches long, and attached a weighted nymph, fly fishing nymph, to it, and then cast it out. And they would come up to look at that rapella, but eat the nymph. And I thought, that's the stuff you need.
I remember that. And isn't that funny, though, how that sort of caught on for a little while, too? If I'm not mistaken, there was a lure company, and it wasn't Rapella. I think it was in the Pradco family that actually put something like that on the market a couple of years later. And so, it's
there's
there's
a saltwater technique out there. I think it's for redfish that do that. They have that. The popper, it's a popper, but there's not even a hook on it. They use the popper as an attractor, and then they come over and they see what's dangling underneath it. There's a certain name for it. I can't remember, but the red fishermen do that all the time in the U.S. in saltwater.
So we used to have a guy on our program in the late 80s, right through, I think, till the early 90s.
You guys are going back a long way here, okay? For a memory like mine, you know what I mean? Come on.
His name was Alf Walker. Does that ring a bell at all, Colin?
No.
So at the time, he was your prototypical fly fisherman who, if there was ever a stereotype, Alf was it. The ascot tie, the tweed hat, the briar white. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So leather patches on the elbows, the whole 9 yards. Yeah.
He fished with a jacket. He fished with a sports jacket, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Anyways, he was one of our segment hosts on the Fishing Canada show for about 5 or 6 years, I guess.
Cool.
And we used to have a contest all the time with him to put both fly fishing and traditional angling into play. Same scenario, same situation, same water, same time, and we used to kind of see which presentation, which method was going to be the most effective. And I got to tell you, Alf was he was an incredible artist when it came to fly fishing. That's the only way I can describe it. An absolute artist, as you are, by the way. But to me, although I do fly fish occasionally, to me, it should be just another tool, right? Fly fishing should be no different than a popping stick or a flipping stick or any other tool that we have in fishing. However, I know that it's not that, because once you start fly fishing, it becomes very addictive.
Yeah.
Am I right?
It does.
And eventually that's all you want to do, because it is such an incredible piece of artistry that you just don't want. You say, why would I want to pick up a spinning reel when I can do this?
Were you a spin fisherman before this, Colin? The spinner, bait casting, whatever? Were you
Absolutely. I grew up going to the cottage in Georgian Bay up near Perry Sound, and I used spinning gear my whole life. And just so you know, if the conditions are right or I want to, I spin fish. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I'm a big believer with fly fishing, and I know there are some that go to the hard side of this and say, no, once you fly fish, you should only fly fish. I will do whatever it takes to catch fish. I want to have a good time, and there are certain conditions where using a spinning rod is going to be a lot more effective than a fly rod. But conversely, it's also about the experience sometimes. Like using an ultralight spinning rod to catch smallmouth bass on little gitsits bounced underneath the dock. I mean, that's like sex for your arm. I mean, it's fantastic, right? Sure. But doing a lightweight rod and throwing topwater mouse pattern and seeing a smallmouth bass come up and eat it, it's equally as exciting, only a little more visual. Yeah. So I'm not what I would call totally focused on fly fishing. I mean, I teach it, And I'm certainly learning. That's why I try to have people who are teaching me. Mark, Bill, we're all learning. Certainly, I'm a lot better than I was 20 years ago. But as I said earlier, I'm still learning all the time. And every time I think I know something, whether it's brook trout fishing, it's smallmouth bass, whatever it is, I get taught something new, which is really great about fishing or fly fishing. It doesn't matter. And one other thing I want to touch on here, Ange, is you really nailed it. The persona of the fly fisher with the ascot. Who wears an ascot? I mean, it's just, unless you're driving an old British sports car, and I love a TR3 Triumph, but I'm sorry, I'm not going to wear an ascot. I'm wearing a buff, and I'm trying to let the bugs not eat me and try and protect this extra honky skin of mine. So, the bottom line is that's really in the past. I remember when I got into it, that was the image of your atypical angler going down to the river, but that we've migrated a long way. And if I go to a lodge like Ted Putnam's lodge, Hawk Lake,
he's on here with us, by the way.
Yes, I look forward to seeing him and hearing his abuse of me. But he tells me, yeah, he gets fly fishers that fly fish only, but he also gets a lot of people that come there to catch bass and pike on a fly rod, but they're going to pick up a spinning rod and they want to catch walleye. So I guess the bottom line is, like, my biggest walleye, I think, was 30.5 inches on a fly rod. Wow. But was it the smartest thing to do in the conditions? No. I probably should have picked up a jig and a spinning rod and started throwing leeches or so I guess the thing is, it's all changed. The persona's changed. And that's why you see so many people getting into fly fishing. In fact, this is a record year. Sorry if I'm bantering on.
No, go right ahead.
What you want, buddy. What you want.
Thanks to the pandemic, a lot of people had fly fishing on their bucket list. And I'm watching on the right here, the comments, and a lot of them are saying, I want to try fly fishing. And let me just first off say, it's not that hard. It really isn't that hard. It seems hard, and it isn't. It really isn't. There's so many tools on YouTube, whether it's my channel or anybody's channel, to get you going. But anyways, going back to this whole thing is that it's just a way to reach fish. And both you guys can attest to this. It's all about presentation.
Yeah, absolutely.
People get caught up about a fly or using a fly rod. It doesn't matter. I don't care if I'm throwing a spinning rod, and I'm throwing one of your big grasshopper patterns that you guys have got, or I'm using a fly fishing pattern, or think of frogs. It's all about presentation. That's what catches fish. And that's what I love about it. It's just, you're always learning. It's always fun. And you can catch anything virtually with a fly rod.
Ange and I talk a lot about that. Everybody listening, I've said it 1,000 times, and I'll keep saying it. And Colin just hit the nail on the head. Until the day we die, we're always going to be learning every time on the water. I insist on learning, not something every season, something every outing. I want to learn something new every outing. Now, I might not try new stuff all the time, as in the fly fishing. Maybe I'm sure it's the same thing, but when it happens, sometimes it surprises the hell out of you. And you go, what? Wait a minute. Why? And you start putting two and two together, and all of a sudden, oh my God, and you got that for the rest of your life. Then you go on to the next trip and the next trip. So learning, we're all about learning. People, the best bass fisherman in the world right now, Jacob Wheeler, he is learning all the time. I'll guarantee you. You know what I mean? Otherwise, he's not going to stay on top. So just to let everybody know, we're always learning.
Sean Fortier wants to know, what's your biggest catch, Colin, on a fly rod?
Are you talking about
your best?
Okay, Sean, are you asking me about species? Is it species specific or the biggest fish I've caught in a fly rod?
Answer them both. What the hell?
Okay.
Yeah, both.
Wow. Biggest fish I've caught, shark. I caught a shark on a fly rod.
Nice.
In just off Louisiana, around the oil rigs there. Woo. And that's because it ate the 10-pound false albacore.
Oh, okay.
I was bringing in
a bull shark, or what was it?
Remember? No, it wasn't a bull shark. It was a blue. I think it was a blue.
Oh, really?
But it was big, and I've hooked a few others before, and I've also my and all types of things. And actually, Mark's one has probably caught the biggest fish. He got in catching swordfish and all types of stuff with a fly rod.
Oh my God.
Species wise, I mean, brook trout, bass. I mean, I think my biggest bass is over 7 on a fly rod.
Holy.
Wow.
Well, big, but it's all, I think, Ange, I remember you telling me when we were at Hawk Lake, we were both there at the same time doing a show. And what was your biggest one? Is it 27 or 20-inch long bass?
27.5 inches smallmouth.
That's a big bass.
And you know what? Back when that fish got caught, it was pre-fishing a tournament. And we had no tools. We had no scale. We had barely had anything on the boat. But we did get a measurement. And another angler and I, who was also in the event, we were both fortunate enough to actually touch this thing. It was magnificent. We didn't have any idea. We knew it was big, but we didn't know how big it was until about a week or two later during a tournament. An M&R boat came over and, did their usual questioning about licenses and stuff. And as I'm talking to the guy, I mentioned, hey, by the way, do you guys know, lengths and weights of bass and stuff? And so that's where I told them what it was. And they were nice enough they didn't have the answer, but they were nice enough to get back to me as to the size of that fish. It was big. It was huge. So that's the biggest, and it was a monster. And to this day, I mean, I haven't even come close to ever seeing anything that big.
To give people a perspective, if you've ever caught a 7-pound walleye, that's how long that smallmouth bass is.
Wow.
Yeah. Same as a 7.5-pound walleye. That's how long that small. I didn't see that fish. I remember that tournament. I was fishing the fish stands, and we were. You guys told us the story that night or whatever like that. We said, "Come on,
now you got the memory going. I got to share this because it was pretty sick. Anybody out there that fishes tournaments, you'll really appreciate this. So we're pre-fishing. Reno and I are pre-fishing. We have two separate boats. He goes one way, I go the other way, and so I made contact with this fish, and it was like the Thursday of the Saturday event, right? 2 days of pre-fishing. And so obviously I was in shock. I put the fish, once we were done with it, by the way, the fish got a bit of a ride. I have to tell you this too, because I had nothing on the boat to measure him. So I knew this fish was big. I put him in the live well, and I went touring the lake to see if I could find anybody that could, measure or weigh or something. And anyway, so I finally found somebody, and we had this moment together measuring this behemoth, and then I took it back. So probably about, I'm going to say 4 hours, 3-4 hours from the time I hooked into it to the time it finally got released back in the same spot that I caught it, by the way. Because I'm thinking to myself, all right, this is obviously the worst luck a human being could ever have, catching this fish pre-tournament. Why couldn't I have caught it Saturday? But I said, you know what, though? I'm going to bring it back to right where I caught it, because you never know. You never know. So anyway, so that night when I got off the water, of course, I told Reno about it, and he gave me hell. He gave me shit, actually, proper shit. What are you doing hooking fish in there? That whole story, right? And needless to say, on Saturday, we went back there because I said, we got to at least try it. There was other fish there anyways. So we went back there, and I would say within an hour of us fishing this big, long, I don't mind telling people, it's the Beaujolais Island, the weed line. I think most bass anglers are pretty familiar with it now. Within an hour that we had fished it and picked up a couple of small fish, that big fish hit again. This time, and I said, when I caught him on Thursday, I said, there isn't a chance in hell that this fish would ever get land. I had no way. It was insane. I was by myself, no landing net, 6-pound test line, little wee jig. So all the wrong things. And I landed that fish by hand. And I said, if this ever happened during a tournament, that fish would be on and off so quick, it'd make your head spin. As sure as hell on the Saturday. So you came up once and gone. So.
You knew it was the same one, eh?
Well, I mean, it was a ways from the boat, and we both saw it clearly when it came up, and I mean, it was massive. I don't know whether it was the same one, but man, it was another big smallmouth. So, I'll never forget that. I'll live to be 100 and never forget that moment when I first saw that fish.
Giant. Hey, Colin, I want to step back. Did you ever do any fishing in the Navy? Did you ever do any fishing overseas anywhere? Did you ever test the waters somewhere else, other countries, or any stories there?
No, unfortunately. When I was in other countries, especially after when I started fly fishing in 1992, 93, I went to some bad places. So no, we weren't too interested in fly fishing.
Right. No,
I was more interested in not stepping on a landmine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no kidding.
kidding. So okay, so you start this thing, and it takes off because first of all, there's a need for it. There's nobody else doing anything even remotely close to that. So that was the uniqueness of your brand to start with. But then you did something else that I found even more intriguing. While we were all banging our heads trying to impress the traditional terrestrial broadcasters and trying to see how the hell we could afford to put our product on national television, you took a bit of a left turn, which was fascinating, and I think a trademark to your brand, in that you went to PBS in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just a great coup. Like, you had all the rest of us, like, we were just spinning, man. We said, what does he know that we don't know? You know? And so it was a great coup, and nobody else followed suit. Normally in our industry, you know, if somebody does something that's considered remotely good, everybody else, right? Everybody else is quick to follow, but nobody followed you to PBS. Tell us about that whole thing and what brought that on.
That would be 2003. So I started the show in 2000, and my local public television station across the border is WPBS. I think it'd be WNED for you in Buffalo. I got to know the station manager, and he had seen the format of our show because they obviously have a very big broadcast reach into Ottawa and Kingston. So he said, why don't you make shows for public television? And I said, what's required? And totally different format. It's a longer show. Zero, you cannot advertise in it, which, you know, I mean, we both know you need to pay the bills and stuff like that. So it was a bit of a leap of faith at the time that advertisers and supporters would be okay with just a billboard. But started on there, and I think at the time we had 30 stations that carried us, and now we're on 120 some odd stations. So we get about 60 odd million households with the show. So it's worked out. It's a unique broadcaster. It's one thing anybody that's in here watching from the States can attest, or Canadians who watch public television. I mean, it's a network that's very dedicated to teaching and education.
Yeah.
But the fallback, one of the problems with it is that every PBS station is independent. And here in Canada, your show is on Global or City TV. It's going to be on Saturday morning, 8 o'clock. Everybody knows where to find it. Every PBS station is independent, and it could be on Saturday morning at 11 o'clock, or it could be Tuesday night at 10 p.m.
Oh, wow.
I have no control. They all do it different.
Wow. How challenging is that? Holy man.
Well, for a little while, Ange, I had the belief that I could try and tell everyone. So I had a little thing on my website where you clicked on it and it would show the different PBS stations and it would say what the times were. But of course, they all changed. Trying to keep up with 100 and some odd stations, that was ridiculous. So don't even try anymore.
Well, you know, I say it's like a trademark for your program, but I think it also, I mean, it set you apart from the rest of us in the fishing show business. And one of the things that you came out of the chute with that none of us had, you almost came into it with a whole truckload of experience in production, because the new fly fisher's always been that quality. You know, if you wanted to see a fishing show the way a producer in Hollywood would do it, it was always the new fly fisher, and you did that right from the get-go. And I have to think that this whole PBS thing had to play a part in that. Did they regulate what you did? Were they on you at all about color correction and quality and all this stuff?
Ange, it's yes.
Yeah.
Answer to everything you just said, yes.
Yeah.
I'll put it this way. The audio standards for PBS are the same as they are for Discovery Network.
Wow.
So
no kidding.
So in order to get on public television, we had to craft a show that was a documentary, a true documentary where you're telling a story and you're teaching, you're going to a destination, and it's an adventure. And I think where I learned a lot, Ange, is very much like what you learned from the other productions you made in your day. I was making military programming at the time, a series called Truth, Duty, Valor, and then I did another one for the History Channel called Combat Forces. I learned how to tell stories, and then to show the bigger picture and let something breathe. So the things you're talking about, the aerial shot of the river in Idaho and drifting down and casting and stuff like that, and letting it breathe, that comes from that storytelling and that kind of big picture. That's what it came from.
No, and it shows, man. I mean, it showed right from day one, and you've always been the envy of our community, being the television fishing show guys. Now, most of them won't admit to that, but I will, and I know Pete will.
Absolutely. Great production. Absolutely phenomenal. It's nice to watch, too. It's nice to see a well-produced, well-done show. It really is.
For sure.
How's your, you have a daughter that is involved with you now, too, right, Colin? So how's she making out with the...
Okay, we're not going to talk about my daughter, Pete. That's off, man. Out of bounds.
And what's her phone number, just in case anybody wants to know?
Okay, well, let me first say, let's go back to what you said. Those are great accolades, and they actually mean a lot to me. That's why I'm kind of blushing here, being the ultimate Irish guy. But I very much appreciate it, gentlemen. You are who I look up to, and to hear that, I appreciate it. And then, if you don't mind, I'm just going to take 10 seconds just to address a couple things that have gone by here. Thank you very much to those people who thanked me for my military service. I appreciate it. And the guy who asked about which ships was I on, I don't have enough time to list how many ships I was on. I was on a lot. And carp fishing with a fly rod is probably one of my favorite things to do. I love catching carp. I think is it Pete? You like catching carp, don't you?
We both
do.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And they're so hard to catch. Everybody says, oh, just get a dough ball. Try and catch them with a little nymph fly and stalk them and get in casting range and not spook them. Really, really tough. So I love catching them. What's my favorite species to catch? I love catching big brook trout on a dry fly. To me, it's just so visual. But I also like equally smallmouth bass. I really like them. They're so much fun to catch. And then the other, I think there was another question there. Anybody that wants to get in, somebody's asked me about the Grand River. Yes, the Grand River is a great place to start, but you know something? It doesn't matter what the waters are. Up here in Ottawa, we don't have trout waters around here, really. It's all warm water fishing. And when I moved here from Nova Scotia, I kind of went in shock, but I adapted and quickly learned how much fun it was to catch a big muskie on a fly rod, a pike, a smallmouth bass. Yeah. So I think we were going to skip that last question and go to something else, right? Yes, my daughter's involved.
Yes,
she's my daughter's 23, and I have a son and a daughter, and I took them both fishing, and just like all sports that I took them into, hockey, baseball, everything, they try. Some things stick, some things don't, and my daughter just loved fishing, period, right? My son, he was excited to go out with me because he's with dad, but when he got older, not so much. So I always go by, if they're asking you to go, that means they like it. And with my daughter, she loved it. So it was kind of a natural progression to get involved in the show.
Now, you've got a few people on the show. Maybe you could just quickly go through your cast.
Well, that's partially because I will tell you that when I first started the show, you kind of go back to the history of this. When I went on PBS in 2003 and I started Truth, Duty, Valor, how do I make 26 shows a year for PBS and also do this TV series called Truth, Duty, Valor that were 1-hour shows? There wasn't enough of me.
What were they? You'll have to forgive me. What were those shows about?
The military, Truth, Duty, Valor. It was Anna Stimbolic that asked me because she found out I was ex-military.
Anna, yeah.
Yes, and this is at Outdoor Life Network, and she asked me if I knew anything about military competitions because they had just put on a series about the U.S. Rangers, Army Rangers competition, Best Ranger, and had got great results with it, and asked me if I could do something like that. And I said, yeah, there's lots of competitions in the military. That was the birthplace of Truth, Duty, Valor. We made it for 4 seasons, and it was basically about the training, competitions, and what Canadian military personnel do in preparation to go on operations, whether it was Air Force, Navy, or Army.
Wow.
Oh, interesting.
Fun project.
It was actually a lot of fun. I met a lot of great people.
And so you're doing this while you're doing the new Fly Fisher. So hence why you need some bodies out there, right?
Yep. And that's how Bill Spicer got involved. So I don't know if Bill's in here watching. He's got better things to do. Than watch me. I meant not you guys. But Bill, it was his wife who introduced me to him, and he was a certified master caster, much prettier than me as well. He's definitely the eye candy in the show.
For sure.
There was some eye candy on your show for a while.
There was. But Mark's still with me.
Nice. Good one. Good recovery.
So we've had a number of hosts. We're very blessed to have like our core group, which is myself, Mark, Bill, and Jenna. But we also bring in other people because doing 26 shows. And if I could tell people out there, think about it that when we go to a location, say I go to Labrador, I go to Northern Ontario, we go to Algoma country. On average, for us to shoot a show, it takes 5 to 7 days.
Yeah.
And I'm doing 26. And that's 26 weeks of shooting.
Wow.
And somewhere in there, we got a shot list, script, output, the shows. That's one every 2 weeks. That's a lot of work. And I like being married. I really enjoy being married. Exactly. I want to keep being married.
And that's the difference right there. Okay. I know guys, won't mention any names. I know guys in our industry, well known, been around for eons. They can do a whole season in the number of days it takes you to shoot one episode.
No.
Yeah.
Well,
they're out there. Believe me, they're out there. It's funny because Pete and I are much like you. We can't seem to get this thing right. We have to be out in the field for a full week to get an episode. Now, everybody, thinks that we do these things in like real time or something, but when I tell them it takes us a full week in the field, they're shocked. But when we are with our peers, the odd time that conversation comes up, they can't believe that it takes us so long to shoot the Fishing Canada show. so that's why I say most of them could do it in a day. What it takes us 7 to do.
We've talked to a few, again, like Ann says, we won't mention any names. I remember talking to one guy, he had 3 episodes in a day done. He said, I got 3 of them done in a day. I said, you know what? 3 episodes done in a day. Oh, okie dokie then. You know what I mean? So it's, and you know what? That's what production was all about. The production element is what takes all the time. It's not, you're against nature too. You're against the fish, which doesn't make things easy at all. It's hammering a nail in this a lot easier than catching a fish. You know what I mean? So there's certain things that are a given, and then there's dealing with nature is tough. And then you add a high production level on it. And I think we're proud, Ange and I are proud to say that we're very happy with the production level we put out there, and Colin as well. So that's where and then you go back to bring it to the studio, and you got another 3, 4, 5 days of producing it, offlining, onlining it, correcting it, stuff like that. So,
how many was that, Pete?
Well, I don't know how many you take. I know how many we take.
Oh, okay. All right. 3, 4 days. Good luck on that one. You know what? I'll start paying piecework then. Forget hourly.
Sorry, Mike.
I got it. I'm glad you brought that one up, Mike.
My episode also takes 3 to 5 days, at least 1 hour of editing.
Piece here. Obviously, he does production, does TV, and does fishing shows.
Scott,
and it takes him 3 to 5 days, or at least 100 hours of editing as well. Good for you. Good for you. You're working. That's I could people tell me they do all this stuff in a day, and I just I cringe. But good for you. Good for you. What's in the future for the new fly fisher? Is the new fly fisher ever going to become the experienced fly fisher?
The old fly fisher. Look at that old fly fisher there. Hey.
As long as he doesn't become the naked fly fisher.
Oh,
whoa.
Yeah, exactly. Whoa, that would really reverse my fortunes, wouldn't it?
You're talking about with Bill Spicer being eye candy, maybe Billy could pull that off, with his Martin guitar out in the bank of the river, all naked it up, Oh
wow.
God.
There's a visual picture. I hope I can get to sleep tonight.
Sorry, Bill.
Good question. I'm very fortunate because Mark Melnick became my partner a few years ago, and 20 years younger than me. definitely the eye candy, and the new generation. I'm probably going to retire here in a few years. I just hit 60. Good time for me to think about departing the fix and moving on to something else. Seems my wife has a lot for me to do, and so anyways, yes, it's going to be the new fly fisher, because something, it's kind of good. I'll go back to what I started this whole thing with didn't matter when I was 34 or if I'm 64, every time I go somewhere, it's still new. Like, I'm learning something. You think about, let's talk about the region between Sault Ste. Marie and Spanish River for smallmouth bass, and every lake and every river is a different challenge to catch fish, even though it's the same species. And I like to think they'll all eat that yellow popper at every place. You've got to adapt, change, and learn, and listen to others who tell you. And a lot of times, just so you know, I'm asking the spin fishing. What are you guys catching them with? Oh, I'm using crayfish.
Yeah.
So I've got crayfish flies, go real slow near the bottom, whatever.
Hey, Colin, can I give you a fishing question on fly fishing? Is there a ratio, an all-round ratio, do you think, at the end of a season of fish, a percentage of fish on the top being dry flies or poppers or whatever versus fish underneath the surface, non-surface fish? Is it like a 2/3 you get them all under the surface? Is there ever a set number of that, like an average throughout the season after season after season?
The rule of thumb that is taught specific to trout is that trout eat 10% of their food on the surface and 90% below the surface.
There you go.
So I would caveat that to say, once a trout gets to a certain size, so it gets, if say we're talking about a brown trout in the Grand River in Southern Ontario, when it gets to 18, 19 inches, it's a major alpha. It's the big predator in that system. Mm-hmm. And it didn't get that big by making mistakes. So it's going to be less likely to expose itself to an osprey coming up eating little, not that efficient food sources like mayflies. Right. It'll hunt the little trout. It'll hunt other things, but it'll stay hidden. Okay. And that's how it gets to be 26 inches and becomes a trophy. Right. They figure out that that's not efficient to them. So to go back to your first question, I think that's why we love those windows when they will eat on the top, whether it's bass, pike, or whatever. Exactly. Because most of the time they eat below the surface, and we've got to take whether it's a Rapella, a spoon, or I'm casting big fly like this one over here, like this streamer here for pike. I mean, you got to throw it out there and get it down in to the water column to where they are and where they're willing to feed. I like to say catch them on top all the time, and then again, the other factor here, Pete, is the season. Early in the season, they're more likely to be on top because there's more food up top, and as the season moves on, less likely. It's
all about the hatching of insects, etc. I'm assuming, right? That'd be a big part of it.
Yeah. Well, so think about around here. There's that little window where all the little baby leopard frogs are everywhere, or the little crayfish, and the fish are aware of these things, just like a heron is. And they zoom in on those things because they're really dumb and they've just been born, and they're an easy target. So the smallmouth will come really shallow looking for those little frogs swimming along, not knowing they shouldn't do that because they're going to get eaten. And that's when we throw a popper. You're throwing a little rebel popper, right?
Yeah.
How about mayfly hatch? Is that a good time or bad time to be fly fishing?
Well, that's a good question, because it depends how many mayflies there is. And I was a couple of years ago, I was on Century Lake, or I was at Century Lodge, on Eagle Lake, Northwest Ontario. And they had the collusion of really warm water and really warm weather with the right sunlight. And every mayfly in the lake seemed to hatch that week. And it was crazy. The walleye fishermen were losing it because they couldn't catch walleye, because they were just driving around underwater going chomping away. It was so easy. So again, it's specific to where and when. When the mayfly hatches are on, and you've been there and you've seen them popping out, and everything's eating them, either on the way up or on the top, depends upon the situation. But if you get too many of them, it's hard to get your fly or your lure spotted and eaten by a trout, a bass, or whatever.
Too many options at that point, right?
Well, true. And this will blow you away. I've caught little pike like the little 5-6 pounders to eat, which are my favorite size, and their belly's full of mayflies.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure you've caught them, and they're full of leeches. They'll eat leeches.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
Message here. I'm trying to read it, but it's very hard to do. Mike, put that moose cat.
Moose cat?
Yeah. Oh, we're covering ourselves. Oh, that's a big message. Anyways, says my wife started fishing about 6 years ago, and she always watches Fishing Canada. She says it's her go-to show. She won't bait her own hook when she started. She didn't when she started. Now she does everything herself, tying her line and lures, and talks to the live bait. Okay. We've all done that, by the way. It's okay. We've all done that.
That's awesome.
And she's hooking them. Thanks, guys, for schooling her in fishing. That's a great. We love hearing stories like that, as you do, Colin. When especially married couples start fishing together, because that's such a cool. It's a totally different layer to their relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you who are fortunate enough to have a wife that has the same passion and drive as you do for fishing, man, that's got to be the best, because now you don't have any points to go fishing anymore, right?
I wonder if she talks nice to them, like, "Hi, little wormy. Oh, I'm sorry, I got to put a hook in your." Or she say, "Catch me a great big pig. Would you hurry up and get down there?" I wonder what her conversation with that live bait's going to be. I know what mine would be. "Get your ass down there, boy."
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
Great. I love it.
All right, I got a million more questions for you. You gonna hang around for a little bit longer with us, Colin, or you gotta?
I'm happy to.
I want to talk to you about the pandemic, because if I didn't, then obviously I wouldn't be doing my job here. I know how it's affected us and how we're trying to work around it. How about you? What have you had any discoveries during the pandemic that made you say, "Hey, you know what? This isn't that bad, because I could do this by doing that"? You had any revelation that you could share with us?
Well, certainly it brought a lot of people, as you both know, a lot of people got into fishing that weren't into fishing. And and then the other thing is that I haven't seen so many anglers in the rivers and lakes around Ottawa as I did this year. It was phenomenal. Yeah. Probably the most interesting thing I could tell you is that I went to shoot shows in Newfoundland, Labrador. So I had to go into the maritime bubble and had to self-isolate. And it's 2 weeks. But part of the challenge at the time, in order to get the work exemption to go in there to do this, we had to drive to Goose Bay from Ottawa, and we weren't allowed to stop in Quebec other than for gas. We couldn't stay overnight. So cameraman and I drove 27 hours straight.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I took turns sleeping, and to get to Goose Bay, get on a plane, fly to a lodge, and then isolate in a cabin.
Oh,
wow.
So that was one of the challenges.
How'd you make out? Was it worth the drive? Was it good?
Yep. Really glad I didn't get to talk to those moose I dodged with my Suburban, but yeah. But yeah, it was challenging. I mean, we've all done the big thing. It just, I guess, when you get a little older, doing the maritime drive. I remember doing it to go to Florida, to go down there to party. Not the same thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? With your buddies. Very challenging. But I will say, what a great place to isolate. Spending 2 weeks, in the Flowers River in Labrador, in a majestic place for 2 weeks, and then getting on and starting to shoot the shows. So it wasn't all that bad.
Yeah, it's been obviously, it ebbs and flows, right? Some days you say, man, we're caught in a cage. And other days we look at it and say, this is great because of things that you just mentioned. It is different. We're all going to have to adapt to it. Certainly moving forward, and we're going to speak to one of them later on in the program. In terms of lodge owners, they're all adapting. They have to rebuild themselves, basically change their way of operating, because I think we're going to be feeling the effects of this for more than a month. Let's put it that way. Here's going to be a bit of a challenge as well. And all that to say, how do you select the venues where you shoot programs? Is it based on being a good fly fishing theater? Is it based on just being a good fishing location? Is it that the resources lend themselves well to fly fishing, or are you just like us? I'm just curious as to whether you have to be a little more particular than we are in terms of picking your locations.
I would say we are, for a number of reasons. First, we're trying to strike balance. I've got to think about where my show is predominantly broadcast. And yes, it's in Canada, but my viewership is 70% American, right off the top. So I have to kind of address that. And even though I like to present Canada as much as I can to the Americans, because I'm so proud of this country and all the wonderful places to fish, I have to strike the balance of being able to show other places. So this season, a good example, Mark, God bless him, he just got out of isolation. He went to Idaho for 3 weeks. We went to Wyoming. We went to Montana to shoot shows. Nice. We were supposed to go to Pennsylvania, Maine, and upstate New York, but they got canceled because they were all scheduled early season. So obviously we had to cancel those. So yes, we're trying to strike a balance. And there's a couple people on the right have been telling me about places in the East. And I will say, we are going to go and catch muskie in New Brunswick on the St. John River.
You're gonna love
it. I'm going personally to catch stripers in Nova Scotia.
Nice.
I used to fish the Stewiacke River, and they didn't have the stripers like they do now. I was at that time more after the brown trout, and that was back in the early 90s. But yeah, we're always trying to find locations and places where we think we're striking a balance of high-end lodges at one end would be a few of our shows, a whole bunch of places that are what I call reasonable cost, and then at the other end would be do-it-yourself places. So I don't know if you've done a show with Melanie and her stare before. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So we did that show, and it really did well. It really resonated with a lot of anglers, both spin and fly fishers, because I get as many non-fly fishers that are just dabbling, that are spin fishers getting into it, watching our show. And that place really, going to one of her flyouts, I think it was Quartz Lake we went to, and Bill and I were there catching big pike on a fly rod, but it was more the whole being with your buddies, cooking, taking turns, drinking beer, having a good time, relaxing. You're not on a clock. You don't have to be back to the lodge at 5 o'clock, all that stuff. It's your calendar, your time, and just very, very relaxing. So I guess, like I said, going back to it, we try to strike that balance of all social, economic, where everyone is on what they want access. The only thing I will caveat this with is that people sometimes will send me emails, or they message us and they'll tell us about a great place, and it's just outside Toronto. You really don't want me to do a show there, because if I did, there'd be 500 people on that little creek the next weekend. So trying to be ethical about it.
It's very true.
Well, it's just, I think, gentlemen, you've done it a lot longer than I do. And I remember I had my eyes really opened in the first 2 years, because I did do a show around Belleville on a small stream there for brown trout. And holy mackerel, I didn't say where I was, but my email got hammered for 2 weeks after that show aired on OLN, asking where. And I thought, that little creek cannot handle the pressure I could ethically put on it.
Yep.
You have to be responsible about it, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And it's unfortunate, but in this game that the three of us are doing right now, we can teach as much technique and try and teach as much as we've learned in our whole lives and all that, but ultimately they all want to know that one little spot where that fish was caught. I want to know where. Instead of taking this great knowledge that Colin's given them of this fly fishing technique and the dry flies and nips and everything, it doesn't matter. I want to know where you caught that fish.
But the reason for that, gentlemen, is you can have the best presentation in the world. You can have the best everything in the world. If the fish ain't there, you ain't catching. And people,
but that ain't the only place in the world to catch the fish either.
But people don't have the time. They're not blessed with the opportunities that we are to get paid to travel around.
I see somebody catching fish. I grasp where they are too. Damn it! Like, hey, where the hell did you get them? I'm the same type of guy. Ultimately, we all want to know. That's why we put our hot spots up on our show. We try to help everybody in every aspect of the game. But it's true what Colin said. That it can be devastation to a small body of water in a real hurry. One season, that creek could be over. You know what I mean? Crowded by 100 people.
Stream, I agree with you 100%. It's insane.
Yeah.
The amount of damage that we can do. I think, you know, we're fortunate enough that on the bodies of water that we fish traditionally, that's not the case. And certainly, I think more people today are practicing catch and release than at any time in our history as anglers. And I think we have to accept the fact that people just want to go out and you know, in 2 or 3 hours, just get their fix for the week, for the month, for the year. Some people for the season. So yeah, location I think is important. I think it's important that we in our business responsibly give that information to them as close as we can and as responsibly as we can. And I think that just adds and builds and brings everybody to this thing that we love, that we call fishing. You know, so
I totally agree.
You know, the little stuff I agree. Anyways, so you mentioned a name earlier on, Anna. She might have been the queen of outdoor television. Stan Bollock, I'm talking about.
Yep.
She might have been the queen of outdoor television because she was given, she was tasked with shaping, I think, the Canadian outdoor and fishing television industry when she was handed the reins at OLN by David Purdy was her predecessor. I don't know whether you ever met.
No, I didn't.
And it's funny because things have sort of gone full circle. Back then, OLN was the place to be. It was the place, the only place. And then mainstream television started jumping on board, you know, CTV, CBC in our case, Global. And the reason I say that is because fishing went from a tiny little activity that some people kind of did, but most of them, they talked about it, but never really pursued it, to becoming mainstream, which is where we are today. I think if we took a poll of 100 people on the street, depending on the street, I think find that a vast majority of them pursue fishing in one form or another, even if that pursuing of fishing is going to the cottage on the weekend and chasing down fish. So my question to you is, how long before you get all those people waving those big, long 10-foot rods back and forth? And can you do that? Right?
Well, that's a good question. So I think I mentioned it earlier. I didn't really expand on it. A lot of people seem to have fly fishing on their bucket list. I think it could go back to a river runs through it, to just seeing it in advertising, whatever. It looks very artistic, looks challenging, just looks, you know, if I could say, relaxing. Fishing by its nature is relaxing, but throw in fly fishing, which is a little more challenging. And I think that's why a lot of doctors and CEOs and a lot of artists, I'm amazed how many painters and composers and that I meet that are fly fishers, they like the extra level of challenge and time flies and doing, you don't have to do all these things. So I think that's drawn them to fly fishing. This year, because of the pandemic, the American Sport Fishing Association in the United States says that the last 3 years, just over 1 million people a year tried fly fishing, like went out there, either took a lesson, bought a fly rod, but they tried getting into fly fishing. The Washington Post just put out an article, and the number they're putting out is 6.5 million.
Wow.
What?
But it's not because of Mark or myself being that attractive on YouTube.
Oh, it's don't you sell yourself short, buddy. Okay.
Oh no, I'm talking to the real stud muffin here. I'll put it this way. I think it's, again, it goes back to, it was on the bucket list. Much like you said, Ange, a lot of people are getting into fishing, period, just because they're looking for it. We live in a world that we have a lot of stresses, whether you consider them real or artificial. The thing is, people look for a way to reconnect spiritually with nature. And whether you're in a boat or you're standing in a river, whether you're using a spinning rod or a fly rod, you just drink in everything around you. You hear those cedar waxwings up in the trees, feel that water around your legs. And the best way I can put it to you is a little anecdotal story about when I was just about to leave the military. I was working here in Ottawa at the National Defense Operations Center, and it was very stressful time. 9/11 had just happened, a lot of stuff going on, and I was the watch officer. And I come off a 12-hour shift, and I was toasted. And my wife, God bless her, would say, "Why don't you go fishing?" And I'd go over to the local river, the Mississippi River, and I'd go cast, and I think I was catching rock bass and little bluegills or something, nothing spectacular. I come home after 2 hours, and she'd say, "I was fishing." I'd go, "Fantastic." I feel totally like all the stress just got sucked away by that river current, and I was a new person. And now I could deal with my kids and be with my kids.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And that's what people today are starting to find out, that it is exactly that. It's the greatest de-stressor on the planet. You don't have to be out for 8 hours or 8 days. You can be out for an hour or two. Just the environment that you put yourself in when you go fishing, it's a natural. It just has to.
You can't go out for an hour. I can't do it.
I know you. I know.
It just can't be done. I don't know how people could go fishing for an hour. How can you do that to yourself? You're just getting started.
You know what? I used to do that all the time back in the early 80s, late 70s. I used to work in the city, and you get back here 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, and it was nothing to go out fishing for an hour, and I did that quite often. So it does.
I guess you know what? Drive back from the city, stand on the riverbank or something like that. Not having to worry about a boat or anything like that. Then
exactly. It works. Colin, this is the time in the program where I have to ask you to tell people how they can hook up with you, where they can find you, where they can reach you, where they can watch you, where they can experience everything that you do. So,
thanks, Ange. I'll make it easy. I won't even tell you a television network's name. Go to YouTube. Just look up The New Fly Fisher. We've built the channel up a lot over the last 3 years. So we've been on 3.5 years now. I think we're 18 million views, 100,000 subscribers, and got about 1,000 videos there. So we try to address everyone's needs. We put full-length shows up there, and we also put short 2-3 minute instructional videos: how to cast, how to put together a rod and reel, how to tie on a fly, and we have all that stuff. There's lots of it out there, but we condense it in the channel. And one thing that we're talking about production values, and you'd find this interesting, Ange. We started this last year, and we're doing it again this year. When we do our regular season, they'll still start in January, the 26 episodes. I was always frustrated when I would have to take a great experience. Let's say I was up in Northern Ontario, and we went in there and just had the most wonderful brook trout experience, fishing on some rivers flowing into James Bay. And you got to crunch that into 24 minutes.
Don't you hate?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I do. So what we did is, starting last year, we went, okay, YouTube takes off all the barriers. Rather than cutting down the good stuff, let's give them everything. Not all the fish catching, not all this and that, but let's give them all the things that we think that they would enjoy that we had to take out because of the time limits. So our average show right now is about 40 minutes, and some of them are as much as an hour and a bit. Mark's just finishing a show he did where they went to 4 lodges in the Bahamas, and that show's just over an hour.
Oh,
yeah. So that's really cool. That's what I like about YouTube.
Yeah.
And I know you guys have got a great channel. I just love the fact it's no boundaries. You can put up what people like, and it's kind of like having it on demand. You can watch 10 minutes of it and then go do something else you got to do and come back to it and keep watching it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of like a PVR. Always there waiting for you.
I just subscribed, buddy. You just got 1 new subscriber. So hopefully the rest of the people will follow suit.
I heard the cash register. Hang on. I think I got 2 cents.
Colin, we've got to run, but man, thank you so much for joining us and taking the time. We got to do this more often. I know we've talked about doing programs together. I think it'd be great if Fishing Canada and You Fly Fisher did an episode together.
That would be cool. That would be cool.
I think it'd be fantastic.
You know what I mean? That's YouTube material right there for sure.
Make it happen. And the only, as I told you, the only 2 people that are in the way of it happening is you and I. If we decide we're going to do it, let's just do it.
Let's hope. Yeah, I agree. Totally. And Ange is Pete, I just hope that the circumstances next year are a little easier for us all and for everyone that's watching.
Yeah.
Because I would love to be casting flies from the front end of a boat on the St. John River for muskie and have you in the back throwing spinnerbaits.
Oh yeah, could you imagine?
Yeah,
See,
that would be fun.
In the back of the boat, Ange.
What else is new? What else is new? I'm so used to
the shit flying all over the place, so you got to watch it anyways.
I'm so used to the back of the boat. I think outboard motors should be mounted on the bow all the time because that's all I see is outboard motor.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for having me on, and I look forward to being with you again soon.
Thank you, my friend. Take care. The new 5-year Colin McKeown, producer at large. The other productions that he has, by the way, he only mentioned one military one. He has 2 or 3 others that I've had an opportunity to have a quick peek at. Fantastic producer. No wonder the show is what it is. I mean, it's outstanding. I think what they do really well is capture the whole setting so nicely on their shows. You can actually feel like you're there. You know, the way
it's the perfect area to do it into. In the world of fishing, fly fishing is that perfect scenario to have the excellent aerial shots, the drone shots. You got all the flowing rivers, the slow motions. It's perfect for that. It really is for the production. It definitely warrants it.
And I mentioned lodges to Colin, how we picked them, etc. We've now got our poll question answered. Our poll is in on this week's question, which was all about lodges, and that is we wanted to know how many of you actually have been to a
fishing lodge, not a flying. It says how many have ever been to a fishing lodge?
Just a fishing lodge.
Yeah. So.
And there's your answer. 63% have not.
I'd say that I would have guessed. I guess we should have thrown a guess in there. You and I always throw a guess, and we didn't do it this time. I would have been close-ish on that one.
I would have said 50-50.
Really? Yeah,
because of the quality of the people that are following us here on this program.
Here he goes. Okay, now no, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm listening here.
They're the ones who are answering the questions,
right?
I just assumed.
So they are much lower quality than what you thought they were. Is that what you're saying?
I'm sorry?
Are they a much lower quality than what you thought they were?
No. I said because of the quality.
Don't you're putting that quicksand, Viola.
On the other hand, just assume that there was no quality there.
No.
I assumed.
No. I assume the role of the working man, and the working man, not too many of them can afford to go to a fishing lodge, et cetera, et cetera. That's what I look at it. So,
well, let's talk to somebody who knows a thing or two, and maybe he won't be surprised at those numbers. In fact, maybe he can add his own idea of what it should be. His name is Ted Putnam. He's been on the program before. Owner of, I'm biased, but I think one of the best walleye fisheries in the world, and it's called Hawk Lake in northwestern Ontario. Hey, Teddy, how you doing, buddy?
What's going on, boys? How we doing over there?
Yeah, look at you.
You're looking like you're doing good too, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, get that hat tipped over to the side there a little bit.
No, right there. You're looking good, brother. What's the hat for? You trying to advertise? Orvis.
I think it says Orvis.
Nice.
I've never heard of them, but they gave me a hat.
Nice.
How can you not love them? Are you up to the lodge or are you back home?
Oh goodness, no. I've been home for a month and a half, maybe. Yeah, the first week of September, we kind of cashed it all in and headed home.
Have you ever, before Ange gets to these questions, have you ever fished your lake at this time of year?
And this year was going to be the year we were going to stay open until October. Like I couldn't wait. Like the fishing is incredible right now, and we decided to do it, and we didn't do it, which is sort of.
We're going to talk obviously to see how your year went up there with no people to take out and impress on those 30+ inch walleye that you got up there. God Almighty, I still say it's something going on up there illegal. You shouldn't have. No one person should have that many big fish in any body of water, as far as I'm concerned. But let me ask you.
He's got them named too, by the way. They're pets. They're named.
Pets. He was damn fish in the lake.
Oh yeah. Trust me.
Crazy. So let's first ask you: are you surprised that 63% of our folks who took, and I don't know what the numbers were on that, but we usually have 1,000 people that respond to the poll. Well, there you go, 1,096 out of 1,000 people. 63% of them have never been to a fishing lodge. Is that surprising or is that normal?
Well, I assume that the bulk of those people responding are actually Canadians.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then that number doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, the fishing is great in Canada. There's rivers and lakes everywhere. A lot of people are not necessarily in the GT area. They're in a little more isolated area, so it's easy to get to. That doesn't surprise me at all. I think if you flip that and went to the States or other countries, I think that number would be upside down. So that doesn't surprise me at all.
Okay. By the way, Outdoorsy Gal wants me to reiterate what's on your hat. Maybe you can just tip it down. It's an Orvis hat.
It's an Orvis hat. It says Orvis Endorsed Guide because our lodge is endorsed by Orvis, the only one in the province. There are 9 in the country. Every year we get these hats that they give just to the lodge owners and my guides.
Now,
yeah, do the whole interview like that with your head right down in your head. Like, hey, okay, everybody. That's
so to be an Orvis, how does somebody apply for that? How can I become an Orvis anything?
Well, I mean, it's pretty easy to apply. You just have to reach out to them. They're based in Vermont. That's where they started the company back in the 1800s. And say, I'm interested in being either a guide or an outfitter or a lodge. And then what they'll do is they reach out to you and they'll ask you some sort of preliminary questions about what you can offer and your experience. And then if you sort of pass the initial screening, they'll give you a quick call. They'll actually send a representative right out to you and fish with you if you're a guide, or actually stay with you if you own a lodge like I do. And at that point, they're very particular, and they're making sure that you know what you're doing, your quality, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a long, drawn out process, but they spend a lot of time and effort to make sure that if they put their name on that place, that lodge, or fishing guide, that they're happy with it.
And of course, the important element that we've all kind of left out is fly fishing.
Yeah, that helps. That helps. Yeah, if you don't fly fish, that's sort of a downer to them. Yes, so they're one of the premier fly fishing companies for sure.
Hey, did you ever put on fly fishing courses up at your lodge or anything like that? Anything that, teaching classroom sort of ideas or something like that?
Yeah, we did it once actually a few years ago with Pete Kutzer, who's the head fly fishing instructor with Orvis, where he came up and he brought a group of people. We did some classroom. Honestly, it was a lot less than we had thought because people were just dying to go fishing. But you in the water, and the nice thing about a lake is you sort of go out in the middle and you can fly fish away and you're not going to get caught in a tree or something. So we had a ball, and afterwards had a few drinks and took pictures, and yeah, it worked out pretty well. And a lot of people that came had never had a fly fishing fly rod in their hands. So it was kind of an eye-opening experience, and we had a lot of fun doing it. And it just, Colin said, when the weather was tough, then we grabbed a spinning rod. But for the most part, a lot of people had their first shot at throwing a fly, and it was great. And again, I always say, yes, it's like a river runs through it. You all want to be Brad Pitt, but I always say fly fishing, it's kind of like sex. You don't have to be good at it, and it's still a lot of fun. It's beautiful.
And anybody can do it.
Exactly.
Anybody can do it, right? You don't have to. You're right. By the way, Rob DeWald thinks that there was an awful glare when we went like this, and I see you got a hat on and you got hair in your head. So he was referring to the glare off of this.
Oh,
I mean, oh my God, he said, the glare, oh my God.
Is that wine that you're having?
You're darn right it is, babe. It's happy hour.
What do you got, Eddie? What are you drinking? Red wine or white wine?
Yeah, a little red, and kicking back. Yeah.
No.
All right. So
we're going to start that. By the way, but I had a chat. Ange and I off camera. Colin was having a little nip beforehand too, and I says we don't do that here. So I'm going to be hitting that liquor cabinet very soon. Next one, we're doing it, buddy. We have to.
And I mean,
nobody's saying we can't. I just say we should.
Okay.
You have too.
Sure, why not? Might as well do the whole thing. So, I mean, not that you wanted to do this, but, the pandemic gave you a very rare opportunity this year that under no other circumstance would you ever have been able to experience. And that is spending an entire season on Hawk Lake with no guests there, or I'm assuming relatively few, if any, but just going out and exploring the lake, which you've not had that type of opportunity. And were it not for the pandemic and COVID, it wouldn't have happened. Talk to us about that experience. That must be remarkable.
Yeah, that took a little getting used to, not having to get up at 5:30 in the morning every morning. That lasted about 4 days, and then I sort of had a rebellion on my hands with my guides. But we talked about this when I was on the show, I think late June this year. We just explored everywhere. We found new lakes. We fished new spots. We tried all sorts of different techniques. We upgraded all of our maps. I've got maps of every lake. So we went out with depth charts with AutoChart Live, then downloaded that, and we're printing them out. So, I mean, it gave us such an opportunity that we would never, ever have really be able to do. The other thing, I've said this on Facebook to a lot of my followers, is, we worked for 4 months just on upgrading the lodge, and that's more than work than we would do in 10 years across the board. And I mortgaged my house, he mortgaged the lodge, and we said, you know what, we're going in a different direction. We'll never have this opportunity again, I hope. Let's just get better. A lot of lodges just said, forget it, we're done. I said, this is a great opportunity. And so we mapped new lakes, and we built new cabins and new hot tubs and this and that. And we made everything ready to go. So even if COVID is still around next year and we can open, I just added 1,500 square feet of outside dining. So everybody can be outside. Everybody can be social distance. We're creating an app right now. So there's touchless check-in when you get there. So we're ready to go. I mean, I really hope COVID isn't here next year, but if it is, we spent a lot of time getting ready for it, and really looking forward to getting back to quasi-normal.
Good for you. Did you find any sleeper lakes out there, Ted, that you said,
Yes, I did. I found one which we will open, and then 2 that haven't been fished in 8 years, which I own, that will also open. So we're pretty psyched too. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot.
Any hints, any tips on what the one really good one was, the species wise, or what do you got?
Let me think. No.
Okay.
Good for you. Hawk Lake itself, did you spend much time on it?
I spent most of my time on Hawk Lake because I didn't have time to go to the other lakes. I actually was working. So I spent all my time on Hawk Lake, and I found another dozen walleye spots, which I'd never known about, which was great. I did so much exploring, and I told you we got an underwater drone. So I got underwater footage of walleye feeding on schools of Cisco, of walleye, chasing this and that, pike really deep. So when we got that footage of this underwater drone, I was like, this is great. So I'm going to start releasing that over the winter, shots of like literally swimming through the schools of fish. It's really cool. It's not one of these like AquaView things you hold with your hand. It's like a remote controlled drone that's cruising through the water. It was pretty neat.
Oh, that's awesome.
That'd be great to see for sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned, we don't know where the pandemic's going to be, whether it's gone, it's coming, is it worse. But I think we need to say at this point that the fishing lodge experience will be different moving forward. You just mentioned touchless check-in. I'm sure that the sanitation part of the business has changed completely and will continue to change over the next 24 months, to the point where I don't think we'll ever be back to where we were pre-pandemic, not just in fishing lodges, anywhere for that matter. How do you feel about that? How do you think that will play out?
That's a good question. Honestly, fishing lodges are sort of set up to sort of be remote, and you're in the outdoors anyway. So I think it's a logical extension for them to sort of go in that direction. It's not like a ski lodge where you're sitting next to somebody in a quad. I mean, that could never change. You got to get to the top of the mountain. But a fishing lodge is already sort of set up that way. Now, as you know, happy hour is big with us, and we like to be together. But we've created all these different spots where you can still sort of be together, but be together in a safe way. So I think, I can't think of a better sport where you can still have a great time and experience everything it has to offer and be pretty darn safe. There are very few things that you can do that in. So I think it's actually going to flourish. And I think the pendulum's going to swing actually to the lodges, where that's going to be a very safe thing that people want to do. And there are not a lot of things that are going to be like that. So I think it really could be good for the industry.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to compare that, right? How do you compare that isolation to a group get together? Even a foursome on a golf course, you get 2 guys in a cart per cart right there, and at the tee up box, there's a lot of closeness. So
obviously, we're up here in Canada. You're south of the border. Things are different in both countries. Do you foresee us having some kind of border opening somewhere in the near future?
That's a big question. And that's like another bottle of wine question. But a couple of things. I have multiple plans. I have one plan for we don't open again at all next summer. That doesn't happen. We're going to be wiped out along with everybody else. But I'm planning for that, as are a lot of other people. I mean, if you just look at the numbers, again, now we're going through second waves. You're going through flu season. Canada's starting to finally sort of go up a little bit on that curve. And so that's just a nightmare. Now, the flip side of that is I just can't believe politicians and governments would be that short-sighted to keep that border closed, right, for a year and a half. It would wipe out multiple industries, not just my industry. It would just across the board. It would just decimate lots of people. So they've got to figure out a way to make it work. And even in the States, I mean, why can't you do testing, when you go somewhere? And they do that, when I go to Maine, which is an hour north, I have to have a COVID test. Okay, I'll go get a COVID test for $20 and I can take that. I can get on an airplane. I can do other things. And other countries are doing that too. As they start to open up their borders, I just think between the US and Canada, we got to figure that out because it's not rocket science. The testing is getting better. And as long as we feel comfortable wherever we're going, either at a lodge or, a golf course or whatever it is, and they have good protocols in place, the countries have to allow people to go back and forth and do it in a safe manner. They really do. By just putting up that wall, there's really no options. There's nothing to talk about.
An interesting questions pop. I mean, we've discussed this topic a few times when you've been on the program, but an interesting one has come up about offering discounts to Canadians or Ontario, in this case, Ontario residents, if the U.S. clientele can't make the travel. I know I've asked you that question on this program before, and I know the answer, and I know what you should say, but let me throw it up to you. Is that a possibility down the road? Well, you'll take a different approach to how the business looks and feels and plays?
Me personally, or the industry, I mean, that's a tough call. I mean, let's put it this way. If I was on the verge of bankruptcy and any dollar would help in order for me to survive, yeah, maybe I would consider it. Sure. I'm not on the verge of bankruptcy quite yet. I mean, honestly, there are still lots of Canadians that are okay paying higher prices depending on where they're going. And I actually had two guests this year. They're both from Winnipeg. We just happened to be open. And hey, could I come on over? We got people here. We'll cook for you. They had the whole place to themselves. But I've talked to a lot of my brethren, certainly in Northwest Ontario, and they've been getting these calls all summer where people are calling saying, hey, I know you're not really open, but if you give me a discount, can I come? The bottom line is, it would be costing us money to try to stay open in order to give somebody a cut rate because they know we're really hurting. We're hemorrhaging money. And so, I'm going to offend lots of people, but at some point, it's almost offensive to someone when they realize you're really down and out. Well, geez, you're down and out. I bet you I'm going to get a great deal. Well, I'd love to give you a great deal, but it costs more for me to give you that great deal than it's worth it. And it's the safety issue for us this summer. It definitely wasn't worth it. The price is the price. And again, we give everybody pays the same rate no matter where you're coming from. I mean, honestly, the same people looking for that great discount when the dollar was 1-to-1 about 9 years ago. It's funny how they weren't looking for a discount then, but now all of a sudden that it's all relative. The same price is the price, and we all have a great experience. So that's my short and curt answer.
And just to sort of add to that, I've said it on the program before. In fact, I might have even said it the last time you were on. I don't think this is a time where we should ask lodge owners because they're down and out, as Ted or not in Ted's case, because he just said, the hell with it, I'm not even opening, but any other lodge owner, I don't think we should be calling them with that question, are you going to discount? It's just not the right time. Not to say that we shouldn't be looking for deals, but this is not the time to be looking for deals.
I would assume that if lodge owners wanted to discount it, they'd advertise that. Hey, get your 20 points off here or something like that. If they want,
there's a lot of them. I know there's a lot of them that have seen fit to lower their prices, but there's different types of operations, and I'm going to tell you, if I ever heard that you were doing that, Ted, I would disown you.
Oh,
I would disown you.
By the way, Tony asked where Hawk Lake was, and it's just east of Kenora. So in the area, if you're up northwest Ontario, just east of Kenora is Hawk Lake Road, and you get into Ted's place in no time there. So that's the area that.
A wonderful drive, by the way. It's a drive to, which is very cool, totally different, but it's a wonderful drive from Southern Ontario. Just the trip itself is worth every minute of it.
Sure is.
Yeah. So, do we know what we're doing next year? Do we have anything we can tell folks about?
Well, a couple things. I mean, in general, we're all grappling with the same question, but a lot of people are sort of hesitant in general about putting a deposit down, not knowing what's going to happen. So in my case, our deposits were cut in half. There's no longer you lose it all. Your deposit will roll over to later in the season or in a future year, 100%. Before, if you didn't show up for whatever reason, it was gone. We're making a lot of changes so people feel a little more comfortable putting some money down. And I know a lot of my brethren are doing the same thing. But to be honest with you, whether the deposit is there or not, most people aren't booking trips from the States anyway. The border's closed. So we have to figure out how to address that first. And once we do, we're going to do great. But I'm planning to open next year. Absolutely. We're doing our hiring right now. Everybody's coming back. I'm still working. We have work going on right now, doing roofs and cabins and whatnot. I'm ready to go. We all are. We're just waiting for the green light.
Did you finally hit your goal of having a whirlpool in every cabin?
We have a hot tub in every cabin, and now we have 3 or 4 private fire pit areas and more social distancing. Oh yeah, there's going to be a lot of love, that's for sure.
That's awesome. Not that there wasn't already. So
it's an experience of a lifetime for sure, and
lots of fun. I'm looking forward to it. It was a very disheartening season, but it is what it is, and we're all going to get better. Let's just get through it. Let's be safe. And then we'll have some fun again.
All right. Always a pleasure. His name is Ted Putnam. You can find him at hawklakelodge.com, I believe is your URL.
Yes, sir.
Go check it out. And hey, this might be the perfect time. Next year, 2021, might be the perfect time where you put yourself in a position to catch a personal best walleye. And it's pretty hard not to do that on Hawk Lake, unless you go up there and you've got a whole wardrobe full of, 10, 12, 15 pound walleye. This is a place where dreams and legends start. So check them out. Teddy, thank you. Bye.
See you later.
Thanks, Teddy. Take care, buddy.
Ted Putnam, owner of this extraordinary operation. It's extraordinary because it's not a fly-in. That's the part that makes it even more.
Totally private and not a fly-in. That's so cool that you drive right down and you bring your boat. I mean, if you want, he's got great boats there, but if you want to bring your rig, we bring our rig every year to it. You got the boat launch right there. You drive to it and you're the only group of people on the whole lake.
I wonder how this new Garmin perspective view would work up on Hawk Lake.
Well, just like it works everywhere else, brother. Like amazing, freaking amazing. It's like
in the little channel between the 2 big pods of water where Ted goes every evening.
Oh, right.
Running that in there.
Yeah. Especially in the evening, because last time we were there, we were running side finder and watching them on the side because it's nice and shallow. Yeah. That perspective in there, that is going to be killer. Yeah. Or that flat where we got them on the side finder that one year over by that island. Oh my God.
That was great.
Okay, we're going again. Okay.
That's it.
I'm done.
All right, what do we got going on here? I've lost track of time as I usually do.
Oh yes, you have.
Guess what? It's time for the doc.
Hiya folks, Gord Pyzer here. I'm going to share 2 secrets with you today. Secret number 1, some of the best fishing in Canada, it happens in the spring and the fall at the coldest times of the year, winter as well. Now, with modern technology and our modern clothing, we can keep pretty warm even out on the coldest days. The one part of our body that gives us trouble, our hands and our fingers. Now, if you wear gloves, what gloves do, they affect the sensitivity. It's hard to feel those light biting fish. The other problem with gloves, they're always getting caught on our hooks. So how do we fish in cold weather with open hands? You know the wristbands that you wear when you're playing tennis in the summer or you're jogging? You put those on again in the spring and the fall. But here's the secret. Get those $1 heater packs. All the stores pretty well sell these things. Give them a shake. They get nice and warm. Stick it underneath your sweatband. I'll put another one on top, so I'll have two. It's like putting your hands on a blast furnace.
And I gotta come clean, hey Doc. I gotta come clean. You changed my cold weather fishing with that tip. Eh? And I went out immediately after that aired, and I did the one pad, never mind two. And I got to tell you, it's nothing short of a miracle. What happens?
I got to start taking my own advice.
Yes.
I went out this week. It was 2 below Celsius, so about 28, 29 Fahrenheit, blowing snow, and I didn't do what I just am. I have never in my life had such cold hands, and I was musky fishing, and I had to give up and go walleye and bass because I was getting so much spray on my hands. I kept wiping them down after every cast. I bailed out.
So would your day have been saved had you done the pads?
Unquestionably, Pete. You know, our problem, and we all do this, it's a nice day in town, or it's a nice day at the house when you're packing the boat up, and you don't put on long johns, you don't take the rain suit, you don't take the heavy, you don't throw. I mean, now you better have gloves in the boat. You better do all those things, because once you get out on the water, it's too late.
It's a different story out there. Absolutely. Every it's never the same as in the driveway when you're hooking that boat up to the to the truck. Ever.
Yeah.
You know?
I took it one step further. And first of all, for those of you watching and you're wondering, well, why don't you just put those pads in your gloves and then you'll be fine? Well, first of all, most of us don't like wearing gloves on the fingers because you need to fish, right? But even forgetting that for just a moment, you put a pad in here and it's got to warm up all of the blood that's going through that whole hand. The reason that this wrist thing works is because all the blood that's flowing to your hand has to go through your wrist, and it's all compressed. It's all a narrow little channel of all those veins. You put the pads on there, like Gord just said, top and bottom, and I'm telling you, you don't need gloves.
No, you don't.
And I'll tell you another little secret that really works well. The same thing applies to your ankles. People who get cold toes, even in really good footwear, try putting the pads around your ankles, and you'll notice a huge difference right away. So,
wow,
it was great.
Just put the pads around your whole body. Stack them everywhere. We'll walk around like a mummy.
I know the first rule of interviews. Excuse me. First rule is you're never supposed to ask a question you don't know the answer to. But I'm going to attempt it. Okay. You boys are still sponsored by Coleman, are you not?
They're around. Why would
this? That Coleman makes this thing.
Yeah,
it is
hand warmer. It's a hand warmer.
It is a hand, but it's a new hand warmer. It's I'm lost for the words right now. Anyway,
butane.
Pardon me?
Butane? Is that what you're thinking? What are you thinking? For the fuel?
There's the way they warm catalytic. I tell you what, they cost. I'm not sponsored. I buy them. I have to go to the store and buy these damn things. They are the most amazing. If you're into hand warmers and you always need to put one in your pocket as well as doing the other things, these are amazing. They've only been out for about 4 or 5 years now, but they take all the previous hand warmers and you can throw them away and you get these. Now you have to replace the wick up on top every year. Really, really important. And you can't overfill them. So you take them out. Oh, I'm not going to pull it, but you take them out, put in lighter fluid, and then, but don't overfill them. And then you get it hot. I swear, I guarantee you can barely hold this in your hand, and it's good for 8 hours. It is so hot. It will burn you. It actually comes in a cloth bag, but I keep mine in my pocket. But between the wrist warmers, because we're forever touching baits, switching baits. And if you've got cotton gloves on, any kind of gloves, the hooks are getting caught in them. But as Ange says, if you put those hand warmers in and you warm where the blood is flowing through, you're pumping warm blood to the ends of your fingers, and it works.
It's fantastic. You can tie knots. You can actually tie knots. Anyway, for those of you watching, don't forget to write that down. Don't forget, when it gets cold.
You need to write that down. I'll tell you why you need to write that down, because until today, I watched Gord's piece when it came out on our show, obviously. And for some reason, because I'm dyslexic or whatever it might be, I thought you just put them on the inside of your wrists. And then today, when I saw him, he said, you put them on both sides of your wrist. I says, you moron, that's why half my hand's cold still when I get out there. And it wasn't working for me properly. And I thought, what am I doing wrong? Now I get it. So now I'm going to try that. Next outing, I'm going to have it on. It's for sure.
We were born at night, Pete, but it wasn't last night.
So you got snow?
That day it did. We've had 6 to 8 degrees Celsius below normal for the last 2 weeks. And
wow.
Boy, I hate to say this, but I got a young friend in Saskatchewan. He's about 17 years old. He caught his first ice fishing fish on the weekend. Now, I'm sure he went to a little small farm pond.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, he pulled it through the ice.
Oh,
and you guys are 20. I see next week or this weekend on Friday, 22 above down in Toronto.
So what's going to happen? Tell us what's going to happen. So 22 degree Friday, Pete and I are going to go fishing on Friday.
Fantastic. It'll be fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the key. Nothing happens below the surface. So it's 22 above water. If you might go to Simcoe or Rice Lake or Lake on, it might warm up the top inch of water. It does nothing down below. But you guys are going to be so comfortable. You're going to be in your element. You're not going to be worrying about hand warmers and wrist warmers and toe warmers and all that kind of stuff. I virtually guarantee you're going to have some of the best fishing you've had this year.
Nice. There you go.
Yeah. I knew it.
Usually warming trends in the fall are good.
Yeah.
But for the reason I mentioned, they're good for the angler. They don't do much to the fish. And so if you know where you're going, you know where the fish should be this time of year, you'll whale away on them.
What's your favorite fish this time of year, Gord?
I have to be honest, muskies, only because this is when the big girls really show up. I won when the Molson Big Fish contest was on. I think the last 4 years I released the biggest muskie and northern pike in Ontario in the contest. Every one of those fish was actually, they were another month from now. Wow. So and the biggest I ever caught, and it actually on the calculation came out at about 57.5 pounds. So it was 8 off the world record. Oh. But I broke ice. I had put the big boat to bed. I had the little 12-footer, 14-footer with a 5 horse on it. And I broke ice for probably 25, 30 minutes to get out to the open water. And then we trolled the rest of the day, and that's when I got that fish. So muskies are, but you know what? I love smallmouth at this time of the year. I love walleye. You can't go wrong in the fall. You cannot go wrong right now.
Hey, Gord, I'll throw one at you there. The last couple times I've been out fishing, there was an east wind. So, quote, it's not supposed to be so good, whatever. Largemouth fishing. The fishing was excellent on an east wind, and the water temps were about 54, 55, maybe 56. Then the following trip out was a west wind, nice, beautiful, warm west wind. Water temperatures were lower because it's a week later, whatever, and the fishing was crap. So that east wind with a little warmer water was lights out. That west wind, you're thinking it's going to be really good, was crap. Is there anything to that at all?
Earlier in the year, yes, Pete. Like when stability is, when they get into the true like take summer, in true summer, then for sure winds are having an effect. When the winds from the east, the fishing's the least. Winds from the west, fishing's the best. Winds from the north, the fishermen go forth. Winds from the south blows the hooks from the fish's mouth. So that's when they've set up, though. That's when they're in a long, stable summer period. But right now, virtually every fish, walleye, smallmouth, muskies, northerns, everything is in transition. And they're moving towards those winter locations and some wintering spots, late fall spots. I do believe the wind is far less important at this time of the year. Okay. And but I will say this, I do love the wind in the fall. And I did a piece a while ago about Langmuir currents and how important they can be. And I love when it gets reasonably windy in the fall. For two reasons. The fishing's still very, very good. And with these cold weather conditions, it blows everybody else right off the lake. So you really do have the lakes to yourself.
Yeah, true.
Can I say one other thing, Pete, about your weeds? And that is for the folks that are going for largemouth northerns, muskies, and we all know those are weed predators. And you have heard this a million times. In the fall, go find the green weeds because that's where the oxygen is, and avoid the brown weeds because that's where they're decaying and using up oxygen. And it is garbage. It is absolutely out to lunch.
I wondered about that.
Yeah. The most oxygenated water in the lake is up tight to shore in those shallows. And when the folks did Project Noble Beast, which was the huge muskie study, radio transmitting fish and following them on the Ottawa River, on the last day of the season, just before the Ottawa River froze, Sean Landsman was doing his master's thesis on that. But I think it was November the 29th, and he was following this giant fish, like 40 plus pounder, 54, 56 inch fish in 4 or 5 feet of weeds in the dirtiest, grungiest, deadest looking part of the lake. And that's where the fish, I mean, that's home. It knew where it was. It knew the area. And there's no lack of oxygen in those spots.
Gord, how much does geography, what part does geography play in that? Like, I mean, you just made a statement there. Is geography all relative? In other words, we could be talking about Southern Ontario, Northern Ontario, Saskatchewan. Fish are fish and water is water. And temperature is temperature. And it's all relative to that particular zone, that area. So these patterns that you're talking about, are they pretty general? Can you use that sort of,
100%, Ange. In fact, you know, what you guys will experience on November 29th, we'll experience that about November 10th. Right. So, you know, there's about a 2-3 week lag when our bass are spawning. Yours are, you're usually a bit ahead of us. And it's the reason why walleye season, just look at Ontario. The first walleye season, Bay of Quinte, southern, right on the Great Lakes, opens the first weekend of May. Central Ontario, the second weekend of May. Up here in our neck of the woods, the third weekend. They're identical. So it's following that transition where they're finishing. And
let's take some questions, shall we, before it's too late and we start running into overtime again. Gord, at what depth should I start to be concerned for smallmouth health and mortality during the fall? I think we talked about this before, but go ahead, Gord.
You know, for all fish, about 26, 27, 28 feet is the generally accepted depth. But if you adjust that for altitude down to sea level, but about 28 feet. The one thing I would say is smallmouth are a much hardier fish. So you can bring a smallmouth up, and if you release it quickly from 30, 31, they'll scoop back down. You pull a crappie up from that same depth. Unlikely that the crappie's going down. I've mentioned this many times. I'm not sponsored by them, but I use it. It's a product out of California, originally made for rockfish on the Pacific, and it's called an eco-leaser, made by a company called Eco-Lease, or just Google that. The thing is amazing. And you put it on the mouth of the fish, and it's got a weight system. I forget what they cost, about $30. And you put it on and just let it go right back. The weight takes the smallmouth down, and then you'll feel him. He starts shaking, and you pop it, and it just opens, pops right out of his mouth, and they swim away. And they're really, really cool.
We used one too, Gord. Last year, actually, we used one in the Bay of Quinte trying it out, and it was called the Sequalizer, and it's the same idea. And he actually has settings. It had I think a 30-foot, a 50-foot, and a 70-foot setting where you could set it up where it was going to release the fish. And sure as hell, that thing, when you drop it down, all of a sudden, because you don't really know what's going on, but we had the luxury of watching it on a fish finder, and all of a sudden, you felt the sort of thump, and then you're still wondering because we had a heavy weight on there, and all of a sudden, that thing's done. There you go, swimming away like that, and the fish swam away. Whereas that fish was turned over in the live well upside down, a big 10-pound walleye. It was upside down, and it was not going to be released no matter what.
Yes.
Like Gord says, even walleye, if you release them quick, you get them out of that net, quick pitcher, or just plop them back, they'll make it. You hold them out for a little bit or put them in the live well for a pitcher later, that fish is toast. He's never going to go back down on his own.
You make a really good point, Pete, because a lot of guys and gals will say, bring them up slowly, and that'll help equalize. Not true. And the other thing they'll say is put them in the live well and let them equalize. That is even worse.
The worst thing you can do.
Bring them up quick and release them quick.
Yep. Worst thing you can do, put them in a live well. Trust us on that one, folks. Anything at 30 feet or deeper, like Gord says, 28 feet or deeper, just do as fast as you can. If you're going to release fish, it's got to be instantly.
Yeah.
Gord, is the topwater bite over?
That's a really good question, because it relates to yours, Ange, about this coming weekend. If I was in Southern Ontario, I would not be surprised to see smallmouth, largemouth hitting topwater baits. Up here, I did a little piece for Outdoor Canada a couple of years ago, and I've been talking with Dr. Ridgway, and because of the warming seasons as a general point, bass in particular are a little bit delayed now moving to their fall areas. Mark's been monitoring it very, very closely. And there is a delay now where I won the tournament here about 15 years ago on Lake of the Woods. And it's always on the third Saturday. My birthday happens to be September 19th, and that happened to be where it was that year. Well, I'll tell you what, September 19th up here now is a little bit warmer than it was. I caught every one of those fish on deep water humps. But right now, on September the 19th, I can go to some of my good spots. Now, they do tend to be main lake oriented, but they're still shallow, and they still chase down topwaters. And in fact, this can be, if you find those areas, they can be some of the best topwater bites of the year because the fish are so bunched up. And so you'll throw out, and I like big noisy prop baits, and this is the time to be aggressive. This isn't the time to throw out that little top water and go ding, 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 ding. This is a top boom, 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 and they will come up 2, 3, 4 together and going all crazy on it. But if I was with you boys on this weekend fishing for bass, I would not be surprised if you caught some topwaters.
Wow. Is there a water temperature, Gord, that you can watch? Like say, okay, it's finally hit 40 degrees. I have no way you're going to get them on a topwater.
Well, I sure wouldn't throw it at 40, Pete, but I'm betting you're going to see 55, 57. You might even see 60 degree. Right here when I was out on Lake of the Woods earlier in the week, it was 48.
Yeah, so, we were hitting 52 on the weekend, so it's colder down here than you think.
That is colder.
Yeah, it's in the low 50s already, so it's going to be very soon to hit high 40s very soon. So,
yeah, it wouldn't be my first choice then.
Yeah.
So Ian wants to know, what do we got? Temperature. Do you find the muskie push off the shallows from feeding on the Cisco and whitefish spawn and head to the depths to get more hospitable temps?
A really good question. And Ian, I'll share this. I won't share too much. He happens to follow me, and I follow Ian on Instagram. And he happened to come up here. he sent me some. He clobbered the muskies on Lac Sewell. I think he got 6 or 8. I think his biggest was about 51, 52 inches, and he got some great fish. And we shared a few little techniques that I won't talk about right now, but being close to Cisco spawning areas is a really, really important fall technique. Ciscoes and whitefish generally spawn in the same areas, and that's still a few weeks away. The Ciscoes, they'll be in about the first week of November, and the whitefish are usually second, third week. So it's still quite a ways off. And the other thing that happens, both Ciscoes and whitefish, they like to stage out in deeper water. So they will stage in 15, 20, 25 feet, and then at night they come shallow to spawn. So the muskies, they would rather be a little bit shallower, and so they intercept them coming in and out. It's the reason why first thing in the morning, last thing in the afternoon. So first thing in the morning, those Cisco's whitefish are drifting out deeper. The muskies maraud on them. And then later again in the evening, they're coming back up shallower, and the muskies are picking them off as well. During the middle of the day, it's somewhat of a balance between the two. But if you know where Cisco spawn, and if you know where whitefish spawn as well, and they're generally the same areas, there are spots.
You might as well take it full circle. How do we know where they spawn?
It gets back to one of Pete's questions. They're always wind exposed. They're always main lake oriented. They tend to be current areas, so neck down channels, anywhere there's lots of water. On a flowage like Lake of the Woods or Rainy or Lac Sewell, where the water's passing through from one lake to the other. So we've always got current in those neck down channel areas. But in a lake, a distinct self-enclosed lake, anytime the wind sets up for 4, 5, 6, 7 days, and you've got 2, 3 islands, and the wind's been blowing for 3 days or 4 days between those islands, there's current moving through. And I will share this with all the muskie anglers that are listening in. The number one, the single most important thing I look for as the start of a pattern in the fall for muskies is current. And whether it's they might be some days on the back side of the so you've got a reef or a big rock, and on this crappy day like I was the other day, they're likely going to be often on the back side of that. But if I was with you boys on the weekend and it goes up to 22, I'd be fishing on the front. Bottom line is you've got to work your way around, and you've got to see, oh, I pulled one off. And always ask yourself, oh, I had that good follow. Did I throw behind the rock? Did I throw in front of it? Where did he come from? And then when you go to your next spot, and it's uncanny, but current is unquestionably the thing I look for most.
So, okay, Gord, now let's take this a step further now. So let's say you got 5 rocks, shoals, whatever you want to call them. You said rock to fish. You found the wind in the direction that it is. You got the fish off the backside. I think any normal angler, as long as it's a smallish hump, you're gonna fish the whole thing just in case, right? The front side, the backside. So by the 5th one, are you gonna only fish the high percentage side, even though it's only gonna take you another 5 minutes to fish the front, or are you gonna fish it entirely?
Well, it all depends, though, Pete. I've been on Lake of the Woods for 44 years, so I got more than 5 spots.
Right.
I checked the other day. I think I had over 6,000 waypoints on the lake. So if I'm out and today is dedicated to hitting my top 20 or top 15 muskie spots, and after fishing 5 or 6 or 7 of them, I've seen 2 or 3 fish show up at the front end of a neck down area or the backside, and I've seen a little bit of a trend, and I've got a lot of good spots to go to. I'm not going behind.
Right on.
Fishing, that's how you make a pattern.
Yeah, absolutely.
These are hard for that reason. We don't see too many. So if you see 2 or 3 and they're acting similarly, wow, that's telling you a lot.
Yeah. that is so hard to do.
Oh, sure it is. That's why I asked the question. I mean, normal people want to hit that whole thing.
Mentally, right? To do, you have no idea how difficult that is for
Yep.
most of us to be able to say, nope. I know the back's been good before, but nope, I'm just going to go skip across to the next front. It's hard to do.
Can I tell you a little story? This was I presented this to Muskies Canada at the spring fishing show. I have a spot, my number one spot on Lake of the Woods. And so it's a big rock, but it's between two islands and a saddle. And the two islands run north-south. So it's an east side I fish and a west side I fish. I have fished it for 44 years. Mm. I raise fish on both sides. In fact, I raise the biggest fish normally over the course of the year on the east side. I have never in 44 years caught a single fish on the east side. Every single muskie I have caught has been on the other side. Sorry, it's on the east side. I've never caught one on the west side. And there is a single boulder, one giant boulder about the size of a Volkswagen. Every single fish has come off that one rock. And wow. You tell me why I can't catch them 15. You mean I can't catch one drift, but it's as though they do not feed until they get behind that rock.
Wow.
So
crazy.
You know,
anywhere else. Yeah. Yeah. Don't waste the time anywhere else, right? Exactly. High percentage. Holy crap.
Calvin wants to know, how well do fish see in the dark, Gord?
Oh, amazingly well. As a general rule, amazingly well. I saw that. I think the reference there was to crappies.
Well, he was asking about crappies earlier on. The last one he put up was about the seeing in the dark, and that's one that I particularly thought we should.
Okay. Now, was it all fish, Ange? Was there?
How well do fish in general see in the dark?
Much better than we often think. Although, having said that, most fish are visual predators. So early light, first light in the morning, last light in the afternoon. And here's my example, and I will use crappies as the example. And I think I mentioned this last week. In the winter, it never ceases to amaze me. If I found a school of crappies in 32 feet, I'll be ice fishing in 3 feet of ice or snow. So 3 feet of snow, 3 feet of ice. You know how dark it is at 30 feet? And when I drop my bait into the hole, I can watch the crappie starting to come up. And that's a 1/32 ounce jig falling out of, and they spot it. They have now, the other thing I would say too, muskies and smallmouth, maybe a little less smallmouth, but muskies for sure, largemouth. The more pressure we put on them, so down where you guys live on the Kawarthas and some of those really, really heavy popular fisheries, you can turn them almost into night feeders. You know, there's so much pressure in some of the Muskokas and some of the Haliburtons on a hot summer day, so much boat traffic and whatever, that those fish don't get comfortable. And we almost condition them to start feeding, late at dark and then into the nighttime. Walleyes are a different case. Walleyes have tremendous night vision. They see better in the dark than they do in the light, and sauger are even better still. Species like carp and catfish, they could care less about their sight. Their olfactory, smell, scent. They find your bait no matter what.
Yeah, under all conditions for sure.
Interesting. Yeah. Very interesting. I mean, you got to think about when you go swimming and you just dive down to 10-foot level. She's dark down there. You know what I mean? So they're living in the best summer day we're talking about. When we go swimming there, the sunshine out that. They're not, the fish that are 20 feet down and with a cloud cover and a dark day. I'll tell you what, that's got to be a dark environment right from the word go. Right?
But Pete, we've got to realize their eye structures, cones and rods in their eyes are totally different than ours. So a walleye has a tapetum lucidum at the back of its eyes. And the best way to think of that is the old disco balls. Kids are going to say disco ball. What the hell is he talking about? Anyway, the disco balls with the big reflective lights. That's what a walleye has in the back of his eyes. 1 million shards of glass and mirror. Wow. And so when the light shines, it hits the back of their eyes, and and that's how they see so well in the dark. So their eyes are different than ours. They see much.
I can see you doing a little Johnny Travolta out there. Gordy, absolute pleasure as usual, my friend.
Can I say one quick thing?
Of course.
I have a blog coming out tomorrow, and Outdoor Canada. It is some of the most fascinating trout stuff for folks that are into brown trout, speckled trout, rainbows. My buddy Jeff Madity. Jeff helps manage the Capel fish hatchery in Saskatchewan.
Right.
They have turned rainbow trout into fall spawners.
What?
Simple. And read my blog. It is brilliant. It is brilliant. I don't want to give away how they're doing it. It's brilliant.
When's it's coming out tomorrow?
It'll go live tomorrow on outdoorcanadaca.ca, and okay. It's just how amazing these animals are. And I always talk about 1 ounce of science, an ounce of biology is worth a pound of tackle. You read tomorrow's piece, and you'll understand. These things are amazing animals.
That's all. I can't wait now. I'm not going to sleep tonight, Gord. Damn you.
Maybe we can talk about it next week.
Yeah.
Use the art for our piece next week. Thank you, my friend. Don't forget, if you want to chase him down, he's available anywhere. I mean, all you have to do is go to Google and punch in Gord Pyzer, and he'll pop up in all the many different articles and blogs that he's got out on the internet, including Ontario Tourism, Outdoor Canada, Fishing Canada, and God knows where else he has poked his nose into. You can't miss him. Doc, thanks, buddy. Have yourself a wonderful week, man.
Thank you very much. I'm going to put wristbands and heaters on next time I go. I'm going to watch Fish Talk Canada.
All right, brother. Yeah. Oh, man, he is just like a wealth of knowledge.
Oh my God, I love it. I hope these people, the people over here on the side of the screen, realize that Ange and I are as enthralled with this talk as you are with them too. So I think it's just you can't get enough.
That one tip that I got from him with the heat packs in your wrist changed my winters completely. I'm telling you. Remember, Pete, when we first saw it, we said, "Wow, that."
It sounded interesting that you had to try it, but it sounded like it can't work.
Because how is that going to warm your fingertips?
Yeah.
You know, when there's, you can't even tie a knot. It's so cold. How's that going to warm it?
Yeah.
Try it. One on top, one on the bottom. Hell, if you can get 4 in there, like completely encompass the wrist, that's even better. It means that all the blood that's going into your hand is going to be warm, and it makes a huge difference. So that's it. Cool.
That's it.
The Doc. Are we done for the evening, Michael?
Let's wrap up. We got remember on the website, we got Fish in the Arctic. Ryan Gregory just put up a new piece. Ryan's always catching giant fish. He's living the dream. He's up on Great Slave Lake every day of his life, and he's fishing. He's doing a TV show up there himself. We have that, I don't know if anybody saw on the internet, I'm sure you saw on Fishing Canada socials, that maniac boater on Rice Lake. Well, he went to court. He got caught. They caught the guy, and he has a court date set up, so they have it all ready to go. So we're going to try and keep up on that story too, because
I think we should get him on the show.
Well, call him up if you think.
You should get him on the show, because I want to talk to this guy. I want to find out what was going through his head at the time that he was driving that big cigarette boat, whatever they call it, through a flotilla of fishing boats.
So I just read a thing tonight on our, I think it was Fishing Canada, one of the socials, that they're saying that he was thinking they were illegally fishing at night with lights, but then somebody else says no, it was in the evening. You could tell it wasn't even dark out yet, sort of thing like that. So I think there's a lot of
But even so,
speculation.
Even
Yeah,
so,
it's not to him. You call the cops, you call the MNR. You know what I mean? If anything, but it's not to him. And I can't see that either happen. There was all kinds of different boats. There was bass boats. There was runabouts. There was John boats. There was all kinds of different. There was no illegal shenanigans on. They were fishing in a good spot. Is what they were doing. You know what I mean? And he is pissed off about something. They even posted his picture on our site. Somebody's took a screen grab and showed a picture of him. So if you want to see what this guy looks like, it's up there on on one of our socials. I can't remember which one it is. Maybe Mikey will be able to tell us. But so his picture is up there and everything. So he's been found. He's been discovered. Remember, people, if you're gonna do something stupid like that, everybody in this world has a phone with a camera on it. You are getting away with nothing nowadays. Nothing. Unless you put a Richard Nixon mask on or something like that. Otherwise, you ain't getting away with it. And he's got registration numbers on his boat. And then we got one more thing on the site. Ann's story before we go. In case you haven't looked at it, you heard Ann's talking about Garmin Panoptics. We put a great little piece on. We went out and did some recording on our one of our GPS map Garmin units where you can actually record the screens. And we went into the Whitby Harbor, and Ann gives you a little rundown of these salmon that are in there. And the live scope mode is cool and everything like that. But then when we throw the perspective mode on, it's like, what the hell is going on here? It's so freaking cool.
Beyond words.
Yeah.
Beyond words.
Check it out.
And little clue from the very beginning of this program, we got a great prize that we're going to unveil on you next week that we're going to give away.
Wow. Maybe
connected to what we just talked about.
Really?
Maybe. Not allowed to say right now.
Okay.
Just saying maybe. Don't forget.
People are doing this right now. In
the meantime, feel free to go to fishingcanada.com, go to the contest button on the page, enter as often as you can. We've got, we're winding down on the outboard motors. We've got 2 left to go away, I believe. And of course, the big prize on the 15th of December. Great timing. Can you imagine some lucky person?
Christmas, eh?
Have a boat, motor, and trailer under the Christmas tree.
Wow.
How cool is that? It's all happening free of charge, fishingcanada.com. All we ask you to do is go in there and enter as often as you can. Obviously, a lot of people are doing that. So I would recommend that if you want to be in the running, you got to get in there and get in there often. And that's it, buddy. I'm burned out, having been off all week now. I might need to stop.
That part-time shit, that doesn't work too good for you anymore, does it? You need to be putting 12-hour days all the time.
All right, guys. Have yourself a great evening. Thanks to everybody for joining us once again. We really appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next Tuesday.
So we're not expecting to catch hundreds of fish on this trip. We're hunting for a trophy fish. Oh.
Got a fighter here, kid. Got one, Ed. Look at that. Oh, you only got one that big? Oh, my God. Oh, buddy, that's a mule. That's a big fish, Ed.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Nice one.
That's a pig. Oh, my God. That's what we're coming up the Hawk Lake right there.
That's a Hawk Lake fish.